lightning talk, which will also be, 15 minutes from ZINDI, talking about data science competition platform in Africa, and a round of applause for Baraka Masuma. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Apologies if I.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me here. I'm here from an organization called ZINDI, which is a startup, also a social enterprise, and essentially we are... Can you not hear me? I've got a mic here. Let me use this. Is this better?
Yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon everybody, and thank you for having me here. So I'm from an organization called ZINDI, which is a social enterprise, it's a startup, and essentially we are a platform for creating a data science ecosystem. And our mission and vision is to create the largest data science ecosystem in Africa. Now, data science ecosystems already exist. So many of you that are data scientists, I myself am not one, but many of you would be familiar with Kaggle or with driven data. But before we launched, we realized there's a gap to solve African problems. And there's also a gap where African talent is looking for data sets and things to train on where, while Kaggle is fantastic, it's a fantastic resource, oftentimes the problems don't cover our local context. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of context and just the background to where we started. So the founders of ZINDI, so they're 4 founders, started a data science consulting company called Ixio Analytics, and this was about 6 years ago. And in many of their engagements, they engaged with organizations that had a lot of data that they didn't know what to do with, but also, they conducted quite a bit of training with students and with different meetup groups, so R meetup groups and Python meetup groups, where individuals, felt they just can't find access to good quality African data. And that was the impetus for them founding ZINDI. So we started quite recently, less than a year old, last year, September. And the idea was to empower African organizations as well as to provide a platform for the future data scientists of Africa to upskill themselves. So I'll give you a little bit more detail about what ZINDI does, how ZINDI does what it does, and I'll also take you through some of the work that we have done. So in a nutshell, our vision is to unleash the power of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we do this first and foremost by convening a community of data scientists. So as of last week, we hit the 3,000 registered users mark. And we've run 12 competitions since we launched in September. The largest competition we've run had around 500 people participating, but this ranges from 100 to 500 people that participate in each of these competitions. Now, what's important is that we bring together both the solution seekers, so the organizations, which come from various platforms. So it's not very clear on the screen, but essentially companies, governments, nonprofits, anyone who has data of any sort and is trying to leverage it a little bit further. We try and connect them with the solution providers or the data scientists on our platform, and people join for many reasons, right? Some people join because they want a shot at winning some prize money. Some people join just because they want to sweat their skills and be able to put it on their CV. We've had a few of our community members say to us, they walked into an interview and they said, I'm on ZINDI, and they showed somebody their leaderboard ranking. And it's these stories of individuals that didn't necessarily have the platform to express and refine their data science skills. It's these stories that keep us motivated to continue to bring these two parties together in our data science ecosystem. So I'll walk through the text. I know it's a little bit faint over here, but essentially, ZINDI started in September last year, so we're very young. We've run 12 competitions. These are the range of competitions that we ran in 2018. So there were 7 competitions. One was with an organization called Devex, where we ran a challenge, to classify text and documents that were relevant to the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. That was very successful. That was the first competition we launched and also the first competition we closed. I'll take you into more detail with that one as a case study, but just after I run through the rest. So we ran a competition with Uber and an organization called Mobi Ticket in Nairobi, where they were trying to predict the demand for their services, so for Mobi Ticket services. And they packaged this in a competition format. They put up some prize money, and the response was, quite electric. That's where more than 500 competitors, and this is from across the continent, not just from Kenya, participated to try and get the most accurate model to predict the demand for Mobi Ticket and Uber services in Nairobi. Then we ran a competition with a company called Insight to Impact, as well as Ixio, our parent company, where we were interested in understanding which tweets would be retweeted. So there are many African companies that, many companies globally that, want to make that investment in social media research and their digital strategy, but they're not quite sure how much value it's going to add to their business. And, sometimes they count it in retweets, as well as who's going to retweet it and how long it's going to stay live. And this was one competition that exploited the openly available Twitter data to try and understand which companies. There was a list of companies ranging from Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa, where we tracked the performance of their tweets. And that was also a very successful competition. Now in October last year, we partnered with Data Science Nigeria. So not all of our competitions necessarily have prize money attached, but some are put up for knowledge purposes. And we partnered with Data Science Nigeria with the intention to launch 2 competitions. One was a loan default prediction model, and the other one was a recommendation engine for a comedy show in Nigeria. And then late in November last year, we started exploring more sensitive topics. So not as sensitive as predicting viral loads, but we engaged a company in Nairobi that a number of years back had collected a large survey data set of individuals that had reported relevant indicators that can describe whether they're depressed or not. And the competition, it was an interesting competition in that it touched on an area that is oftentimes taboo in African culture. But we felt the discussion on both sides around, addressing this very real problem with a real data set that's hasn't been exploited before, with having conversations about mental health. We felt those were things that, we wanted the platform to drive those discussions and those conversations. And then also last year we engaged a Kenyan nonprofit called Local Ocean, and they're in the business of rescuing sea turtles, but they found their data set, their database was extremely messy. There were errors within it, and they engaged us because, as a non-profit, they didn't have the resources to necessarily go through every single observation, every single feature to identify where the errors lie. So we helped them run a competition where essentially we were classifying the errors within their database. And this competition closed recently, and they're going to deploy the solution that they got from this competition into their systems going forward. And this was just with one database out of more than 30 databases that they had. So just to give you a little bit more context about what it means to run a data science competition. So the Devex challenge, Devex is a social enterprise, and what they do is they serve as a media and data platform for development practitioners. Some of their content is journalistic, some of it is information driven, but ultimately they want to catalyze and help the development community collaborate a little bit better. And what they did is they came to us with this problem where they said they want to go through their list of millions of documents and programs and initiatives and companies, They want to go through the documents and they want to label them and tag them appropriately. So it was a natural language processing problem. But they didn't have the bandwidth to do that manually, of course. And they also didn't have the capacity in-house to necessarily build the relevant model to do that. And once they had classified, the documents and the initiatives and the programs, then they could easily match that with companies, organizations operating in the field who could then align their resources and collaborate a lot better. Okay? So they came to us with this problem, and they gave us a training data set, approximately 3,000 web scraped text. This is tenders, programs, documents, news articles, spanning international development, humanitarian relief. And we put this out to our community, and they developed three, well, the prizes were awarded to three, candidates, which provided very, relevant models that help to classify and algorithmically identify, the development projects, organizations, and initiatives that were common. And so for Devex could then take this to their community of development practitioners and say, guys, we are all doing very similar things, and we're all expending resources in similar ways. Why don't we collaborate? Because ultimately that's in the best interest of our ultimate impact. And so they're also one of the cases where they're going to deploy this, and we're also providing them with a bit of support on that front. Now, in setting up this project, where ZINDI played a role is that ZINDI came in and we helped them, define the problem. So their problem was, broadly speaking, when they came to us, their problem was of enabling better collaboration and allocations of resources. And how can they do that through their core business model, which is media and information to their partners. And they came to us, we helped them define the problem, identify the most suitable data sets, and once we packaged that, then we put it out into our community who could download the data, build machine learning models, and then submit their solutions onto the platform. Now, the beauty of the ZINDI platform is that there's a live leaderboard, and so you submit your response today and you already know where you rank. And it also, at least we found with the community thus far, it has motivated them to continually try and improve their accuracy. And whether they win or not, they still come back, to continually try and refine their models and approaches to data science, which we find to be the true value of the platform itself. Now, fast forward to 2019, we've already launched 6 competitions. So I'm not going to take you through all of them. I'm going to take you through one. So the point I wanted to make with just showing you the competitions we've launched so far is that they range in spectrum. So we've got text classification, we've got demand prediction. The one that's interesting, which we launched in March this year, is a crop classification problem with an organization called FarmPin and a few other partners. And in this case, it's, this organization, they came to us and they said, well, we've got quite a bit of data that classifies fields along the Orange River, which is a big agricultural area in South Africa. And given that, given that this area and South Africa generally has been experiencing quite a lot of droughts, they'd like to put this out to the community to build a useful model that can help their clients, in many instances government institutions, monitor agricultural activity in the field. And so they said, well, we would like individuals to classify crops ranging from maize to vineyards to cotton using satellite data imagery. And this is from various sources where, the resulting model, would help with that monitoring, but it would be at a much lower cost, at a fraction of the cost than them building it in-house or them continually sending people out into the field to verify and confirm whether a field is actually, a plot or a crop is actually there. Now, this competition is still open if any of you budding data scientists would like to enter. It's open until September. So I would urge you all to join. It's a bit over my head, as I'm not a data scientist. But I do think the applicability of this is very important for the African continent broadly, where agriculture is a major staple for much of the continent, both from a economic activity and jobs perspective. But also it's an interesting problem because the area where crops are actually found, it's a very small area of the entire geographical sample. And so, we also face the problem of, small data sets or small response variables where we can, that we can model, but ultimately this is the reality. And we need to learn to, improve how we model classifications and predictions with the limited information that we do have. So just to sum up, to date, we've launched 12 competitions. We have 3,000 data scientists on the platform that are engaged at different levels. So we have a number of experts that continually rank in the top 10, but we also have individuals that enjoy participating in the discussion boards, are there to learn. There's quite a lot of activity. So we encourage data scientists across the spectrum. I myself, I would consider myself an entry-level data scientist. And so this is a space where anybody can necessarily try their hand and build their skills up. And we do have a Twitter page as well, so please follow us. But yes, ultimately, I think the nature of the ecosystem we want to build is an ecosystem where uniquely African problems can have a showcase. And so it's important for us to learn, what types of competitions do you as data scientists want to see? Or, as founders and members of organizations, what are the problems that you face that can be solved by individuals that do have oftentimes a clear idea of the context, and how can we then collaborate to make that happen? So yeah, thank you very much. That is all from me, and I'd be interested in hearing any questions that you might have.
Yeah. Big round of applause for Baraka. Thank you very much. We'll take two and quick ones. Maybe how many people know about ZINDI?
Okay, actually, show of hands. How many people know about ZINDI? How many people would like to participate on ZINDI? Come on, there should be more hands than that. I really urge you all to participate. So my email address is baraka@zindi.africa, and I'll be here today and tomorrow. So if you have any questions offline, we have some interesting competitions coming up soon in the health space as well. Yes?
Yeah, sorry, maybe I'll pass that on to you. Maybe just something that you'd like to serialize, just to understand, is there a structure for turning these into educational programs that people within universities sort of wanting to put up something within their schools? Is there some sort of structure for this?
Yes.
Then we'll take it.
So my question is data for the projects publicly available after the projects are done? Can we use it for research?
So the short answer to that is yes. So we use data from various sources. In some instances, with the satellite imagery for crop classification, that's publicly available. The satellite data is publicly available itself. But there are instances where we've had to mask the data. So in the competition where participants were predicting whether someone was likely to be depressed or not, then there's a lot of sensitive information within that we unfortunately cannot release. And what happens is, at the end of the competition, we do have agreements with the organizations that host the competitions that we leave the data sets up themselves. The only thing is, when the competition closes, you can't get onto the leaderboard, but that hasn't really deterred anybody from downloading the data set and having their hand at trying to build a model for themselves, because at the end of the day, the learning still takes place. And in terms of whether university students or others want to serialize this, so we do currently run an ambassador program where we connect with individuals. So these are just motivated individuals. Currently nothing in Ethiopia, but in Kenya, in Uganda, Tanzania, and in Nigeria. So these are individuals that really came onto the platform, put their hand up, and said, we want to build this into our model because our members use the platform already. And so we've helped to facilitate some hackathons. Well, we helped facilitate a hackathon in Kenya. We're going to help facilitate one in Uganda as well. So there's definitely scope to partner with individuals that want to drive it independently within their country.
Thanks, because that speaks to some localized implementation of some of these.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, allow me again, thank our speaker. Thank you, Baraka. I'd like to invite our chair to sort of guide us where we're going to